I will now move to our guest speaker today and bring him up on stage to formally introduce him.
Sorry, there you go. My name is Dr. Harvey Castro, and I'm the CEO of Medical Intelligence Ops.
Yes, thank you so much, Dr. Harvey Castro, for being here. We're excited to hear what you have to say. Um, and I just want to give a background on Dr. Harvey Castro. Growing up in New York City, he was raised by a single teenage mother. This experience instilled in him a determination to break the cycle of living paycheck to paycheck. He set a goal for himself to think outside the box and work hard to become a physician, a decision that would ultimately shape the trajectory of his life. And with over 2 decades of experience as a physician, entrepreneur, and former CEO of a healthcare system, he's expanded his influence into healthcare management, working with physicians and integrating healthcare management into modern practices. His commitment to revolutionizing healthcare through AI has led him to serve as a strategic advisor for ChatGTP. Let me go back and say that. ChatGPT. Don't say that too fast. And healthcare. I aim to create a seamless symbiosis between healthcare professionals, AI developers, and innovative AI solutions, he states. His role encompasses orchestrating AI adoption plans, bridging the technology healthcare divide, working with physicians, and as an author and public speaker, he endeavors to foster awareness and spur action on AI's transformative potential in healthcare, sharing insights from his unique intersection of experiences in healthcare, working with physicians, and healthcare management. He asks that we join him on this exciting journey where we innovate, inspire, and impact the future of healthcare. Together, we can create a healthier, more intelligent world. His book, AI Doctor, from beside from bedside to bite, a new era of healing. Without any further ado, I welcome Dr. Harvey Castro. The stage is
Awesome.
yours.
Thank you. Thank you. Well, I appreciate everybody. Thank you so much for having me. It's an honor to be here. And then if you want to load my slides, and we'll get started. All right. Well, first of all, this is basically my focus today. We're going to be talking about ChatGPT 4 Vision. I know a lot of you guys have played with it, but I want you to look at it from a physician's point of view, or no pun intended, from a physician's eyes. Next slide. Okay, so why am I so excited? I mean, about ChatGPT. Honestly, for me personally, it's been just such an amazing tool. I want to give you a quick backstory. Literally, over a year ago now, I was playing with ChatGPT. Thought it was amazing. And I think I landed on it on the first day. And I thought, holy cow, this is going to help medicine. This is going to help my patients, my colleagues, and got to the point where I got obsessed to the point where I literally started writing the first book on ChatGPT and healthcare. I'll remember I was in this office writing the book, and my wife came in and was like, "What is ChatGPT? What are you doing?" And I was like, "Well, it's this thing that I think is going to help healthcare." And so much so that I wrote the first book on it, and it published about a year ago today. And so just to drive that point, this is one of my favorite slides. Basically, it was about a young boy. He was having leg pain, and he had been going to about 17 physicians over a 3 year span. And he kept telling his mom, "My leg is killing me, mom." And unfortunately, many doctors thought it was psychiatric issues. They thought, the kid was making it up. And finally, what I thought was amazing was the mom put all that information, all the medical notes, all the MRIs, put it into ChatGPT and said, "Hey, what's wrong with my child?" And believe it or not, it gave this diagnosis called tethered core syndrome. And the mom went back to the neurosurgeon and said, "Hey, take a look at this diagnosis. What do you think?" And well, the neurosurgeon obviously went back and looked at the MRI with careful eyes, looking for tethered core syndrome, and actually found it. And so this just explains to me, like, wow, here's a powerful tool. And if it's used correctly, this is so great. So next slide. So why I'm so excited is this extra slide here. The average person, if you look at this chart, has an IQ between 90 and 100. So that's the general population. As you can see, it's a bell curve. So we have people in the 50 range and we have people above 140. Well, what's crazy to me is when you look at ChatGPT, according to Scientific America, this article that came out March of last year, the IQ of ChatGPT was about 150, 155 is what they quoted. And I thought, holy cow, if my IQ is anything below that and I need help in X and Y, then I can leverage the power of AI, leverage that IQ to help me do things that maybe I couldn't do before. And that really excites me because I feel like now it's helping all of us, not just in certain individuals or those that can afford it. Right now, for 20 bucks a month or less, depending on how you set it up, you're able to get this technology. Next slide. And so one of the other things I was going to say about that last slide, and don't change it, just keep it on this slide, is we have the bell curve. We have people that are like Albert Einstein, and it's a 155 or above, or and I think he's around 165. And we have Elon Musk that's around the same 155. So we have an amazing tool. What I keep telling people is, if you had a best friend that was a genius, that you could ask him or her anything 24/7, why not leverage that? My example to people is ChatGPT is like the best person you can talk to. Unfortunately, it will always tell you stuff, and sometimes it tells you things that are not correct. And so I'll challenge you guys that as you start using the output, to make sure you're verifying it, make sure you are asking the experts. With that said, I think with the hallucination effects, depending on which generation you're using, it could go down to as little as 5%. Yes, in healthcare, that's too much, but for many things that we're doing daily that we need help on, I think that is acceptable, and to the point where we can still verify all that information. Now, 2023 has been a crazy year. If you look at all these models that I'm showing you right now, it's showing you all the big models that are out there. Everybody's heard of ChatGPT 4, but there's others out there. Think of it as other flavors. Now, size, and depending on what you do, may matter, but may not. And so on here, I have some smaller llama models like Llama, and that model is quite interesting in the sense that it's open source. Literally everyone that's listening to it, if right now, can use this model for free. Obviously there's some stuff that you need to do on the back end, but for the most part, there's not much that you have to do. If you know technology, you can create your own model. You can literally I have this model on my Mac computer, and I'll go over stuff that you could do with it. But the skinny is, look at all the models that are out there, see how big ChatGPT 4 is. And in the future, we have other models that are coming that are going to be through Google DeepMind, Gemini, and I'll talk about that a little later, Anthropic Claude. In next year, we should be, or actually this year now, we should be seeing ChatGPT 5. Next slide. So, I like this slide. I made up this slide, and the skinny is this. It's called Amara's Law. And all it is everybody's really excited about AI, saying, oh my gosh, this is going to cure cancer. It's going to do all these things. And we're overestimating what AI can actually do on the short term. Long term, we're saying, no, AI cannot do any of this stuff. Everybody's totally wrong. And my point with this slide is I feel like we're somewhere in the middle. And depending on what vertical we're talking about different parts of healthcare. Are we talking about business? This will apply in the sense that some of the things that AI can do is amazing. And it's, I think, ahead of its curve. But there's some things that we can't really guess. So, big picture of the slide is, let's just watch how AI is moving forward. Let's be cautious of overestimating what it can do, but then let's make sure we're not shortcutting it, saying, oh, it's never going to do that. I think somewhere in the middle, we're going to find what AI is going to be doing, and different verticals, like I said, will apply differently. Next slide. So I know a lot of naysayers out there like, hey, AI is going to take my job. AI is horrible. And I get it. I know when I speak and teach doctors on AI and different healthcare professionals, they fight me on this. They tell me, hey, I have like 40 years of hospital experience. AI is never going to beat me. I'm better than AI. And I've had some doctors tell me, hey, if AI gets into the hospital, then I'm retiring early. And I understand. But my challenge that I want people to really understand is like that other slide that I mentioned. We have a IQ of 155 plus the human, and I think it's going to be way better. So basically, AI plus human is going to be better than just human, and that human is better than the AI. And I really want us to think about that statement, because if we can leverage AI to make us better, if I'm weak at certain things and I add AI, then I'll be better than not using AI. And as a doctor, I'm an ER doctor. If it's 2, 3 in the morning and I'm exhausted and I haven't slept in, 24 hours, I'm not at my best. I'm a human. And yes, I have to be always at my best and I have to give my all. But at the end of the day, unfortunately, my body will give out at some point. And so my point is this: why not use AI to enter those symptoms, say, hey, what is the different possible diseases of my patient? And use it as not as a clutch, but just as an extra reference where I can say, okay, I know this person's probably having a heart attack, but what are the diagnoses should I be thinking of? And it's 2, 3 in the morning. Maybe I would have thought of it right on my first hour of work, but maybe on the 12th hour, I may not be as sharp. And so, again, we need something to help us. Now, believe it or not, medical knowledge doubles every 30 days, which is unreal. Just to give you reference, back in the 1950s, medical knowledge would double every 50 years. So, in theory, if it was the 1950s today, I could literally take a 10-year vacation, come back, and I really wouldn't be missing much. Now, if I did 10 years and came back into medicine, I feel like I'd have to go back to medical school. And so we need something like AI to help us give us access of the latest information, keep us up to date. Next slide. And so I want you to look at this slide. I won't go too much into it, but the skinny is this. The little red, they did a study, and this is the one of the coolest graphs that they did. And basically, they asked individuals a question, and those people were just regular, ordinary people, and they ranked the quality of that answer. And so that little red dot between 1 and 2, that was what their response was. Then they took that same topic and asked a human expert in that field, and you can see the quality went from 3 to 6 is way better and it's more intense. But then this is the coolest part. They asked that same question to ChatGPT, and then they ranked the results and the quality of that answer, and look how much better it did than the human expert. But here's the coolest part. They went back to the regular person. They used that regular person plus GPT, and look how much better we're getting the results now, and look how much intense. So to me, that just shows the power of GPT. How can we leverage? How can we augment our minds and do more for what we're doing? Next slide. So in healthcare, why am I so stoked? I really think we're going to be able to better communicate with our patients and back and forth with our doctors. How many times have you gone to see a doctor and you are either short on time and you don't feel like you can explain or ask the question, or you may be timid? Maybe you don't know medicine, but you want to feel like you know medicine, and you don't want to ask a question because you may think it's not a smart question. But at the end of the day, we need a tool that helps us better communicate. So I think using Bard, ChatGPT, Claude AI, Pi, Bing Chat, these tools, again, we have to be careful with HIPAA and not violating that, but asking the questions in such a way that it could be a generic question to help us get more out of our patient visit. Believe it or not, when we see our doctors in the United States, we're only getting about 13 minutes. And those 13 minutes, I feel like there's so much other stuff that's going on during those 13 minutes that it's really less than that. And so my point is this: if you have hypertension, high cholesterol, and you know all these things are going on with you, why not ask ChatGPT or one of these AI models to help you with the best questions to ask your doctor, follow up questions to ask your doctor, and then next slide, I'll show you another cool thing. Um, when you're in front of the doctor, not I'm telling my patients, bring your computer. I'm fine with us having a conversation with ChatGPT and working together, because here's the difference. When you speak to AI, doctors speak sometimes the medical lingo and they try their best to break it down. But to me, AI can do a really good job, not only in breaking it down, but it can actually explain it in your culture. And so let me give you an example. If a doctor's explaining something really complex and you say to ChatGPT, explain this as if you were talking to a sixth grader, it's going to break it down in really basic terms. And I feel like the patient's going to be more satisfied because they understand the issue better. The other part to this is Let's think about it this way. If you're from another country and you're saying, I'm in Dallas, Texas, and you're talking to a small town doctor, or just you're from another country, why not use ChatGPT to A, speak to that person in their language, B, talk to them in examples. So if I'm here in Dallas, Texas, the big thing here is the Dallas Cowboys are going to the playoffs, but for the rest of the world, they may not be into football. And football being in the United States, not it's not soccer. Because again, when I say football, people outside the U.S. will say, "Oh, that's soccer." And my point is this: if we use ChatGPT to help us leverage what kind of examples we use, we change the way we speak. Now we can really identify with our patients that are from all over the world and really work together in explaining things. Next slide. So, post patient, this is how I broke it up. I think doctors can go back on their websites, fix their discharge instructions, fix their websites, fix any medical information that's out there, and use AI. And I'm saying, don't let your office manager do this. I'm saying the doctors or the healthcare professionals that do this all the time go in and look at the subject, put it into ChatGPT, help it translate or help it fix the way it's supposed to be said, and then have a doctor verify. I'm not just saying, oh, let AI go on its own. No, let the doctor go through, make sure it's not hallucinating, make sure it looks good, but make sure this information is amazing. I don't see why, and I'll show you this next slide. Next slide. I don't see why we should do discharge instructions the same. I think we need to leverage AI. This is one of my favorite examples. Basically, this was out of England. They had this discharge instructions from a pediatric patient, and this child, what they did was amazing. Sorry, there's a little buzzing in the background. I'll end in 2 seconds, but what they did was the following. They took the child's discharge instructions. The child had asthma. Entered that asthma information into ChatGPT and said, let's convert this and use the words that we would use for a 5 year old. But then the best part is, as a doctor, for example, on asthma, we want to make sure that they take their medicine, that we take the medicine correctly, that they tell parents if they're having an asthma attack. Well, they took those core principles of what I just said and they entered it into ChatGPT and then converted it into a coloring book. And now, what I think is amazing is instead of giving them these pieces of paper with just print, now they're giving the child coloring book where now the parents can talk to the child, now the doctors can draw with the child, the nurses can draw with the child, and now the child can really go through and really take that information to another level. And guess what? They haven't done the study yet, but I bet you anything that the compliance will be higher. Child will be less likely to come to the doctor again, more likely to take its medications and understand their disease. So I'm thinking in the pediatric world, to give you a quick example, why not use this type of technology to help us? Next slide. So general categories, everybody's, you've heard of the pre-authorization letter that ChatGPT can kind of create and help you for insurance purposes. Everybody's heard of Epic creating summarization. Epic's electronic medical record here in the United States that helps you create multiple summaries of what you're seeing when you're patient. But I'm pushing for my healthcare providers and professionals out there. Why not teach them empathy using AI? A lot of times we talk to our patients, but we have a hard time communicating. So why not have AI teach me what words should I use? How should I sit? What words are show more empathy? If I'm giving a patient, if I'm an oncologist and all I see is patients with cancer and I have to tell them about their chemotherapy, what words should I use? How can I be more sensitive? And I really think AI can help me get there. Next slide. So, big picture, LLMs are amazing in drug discovery development. Believe it or not, it's some companies have taken this to another level. They're using something called AlphaFold by Google. Basically, they mapped out all the different proteins and figure out this whole key lock effect where if this is what the protein looks like, and I'm trying to discover a drug that will affect this, then that key, those proteins go on top of it. The skinny is this. They're able to use this technology or like type of technology to basically take it to the next level. Instead of spending 100 million, well, it's more like $1 billion, they can now spend $100 million on developing the drug. And I know that's still a lot, but if you're looking at a billion versus 100, that million, that 10x factor of decrease in cost will help us. How? drug companies are going to start developing things that maybe some diseases are not worth it in their minds. And I know everything as a doctor is worth it, but in their minds, they are now going to look at it and say, wow, there's some rare disorders that didn't make financial sense, but because my cost to make this drug costs 10 times less, now it actually will make a profit. And I know that sounds horrible, but big picture, the way I see it is we're actually starting to help humanity. AI, I think, will help us take us to another level when it comes to precision care, precision medicine, using our DNA to come up with different drugs. Just a quick example would be, say they haven't developed this yet, but just to work with the science behind me here. Say you are a diabetic patient and you need insulin. Well, if we knew your chemical makeup and we knew how your body works, there's a way that possibly may not be able to use all that insulin. We may be able to have to use less amount because it's working more with your body and it's more exact. And my point is this: there's so many doses out there that if you give the patient too much, if you're able to precision make that medicine exactly for them, you're going to give them less side effects and more output, and they'll be have a better outcome. So I really think AI is going to take us there. Next slide. So what is the future? And this will be the last part of my talk, is this ChatGPT vision. Basically you'll be able to take a picture of a disease process if you're a doctor or a patient, and then upload it, and then AI will be able to interpret it. I have a prop right here. I'm going to wear it. These are the new Meta glasses. They just turned on. I could hear it in the back of my ear here. I could connect this to ChatGPT, so I can literally have a conversation with ChatGPT, and I would hear it. If we were doing an interview, in theory, they could listen to your questions and then answer it, and you would know, but I would be able to hear ChatGPT answer and then tell you. The reason I like these glasses is these lenses turn dark when I go outside, but the really cool part is I can take a picture. So right there, I just took a picture of the screen in this camera. And then let's just pretend I was seeing a certain disease or skin ailment. I could take a picture, it would look at it, it would interpret that image and then tell me, yes, this is cancerous mole, or this is XYZ. And so this type of technology is basically here now, and we're able to use it. Now, granted, this is just a beta, just starting. There's a lot of pros and cons to this, but the point is the principles are there. And 2024, this year, we're going to start seeing so many of these applications. As a reminder, as an ER doctor, when I look at a patient, sometimes patients come in, the ambulance will bring in that are overdose, and I can't speak to the patient. I have no idea. And some of these patients are overdose. And literally, what the ambulance does is grab whatever pills they find by the bed or wherever they found the patient, they literally put it on my desk. It's a challenge for me to look at those pills and be like, what did this patient took? But now I can take a picture of that pill, or I could use my glasses to take a picture and then have the AI analyze and then say, oh, this is a Tylenol overdose. And guess what? That's linked to my electronic medical record. And now the pharmacist can say, oh, he needs the antidote for Tylenol overdose, and then ship it to me. And within minutes, I would have that. Currently, if I have a Tylenol overdose, I may have an app and I have to go through and try to tell the way it looks and try to figure out what it is. Other things I can do is call poison control, and I have to wait online and find an expert and go through that. And these are the process that the ER doctors are doing. So again, this kind of technology can really leap us forward. Next slide. So how does this thing work? There's so many things that it can do. It can analyze horrible doctor handwriting like I have. It could help analyze certain EKGs and products. That vision is going to be huge. And I'm going to show you some fun slides coming up next. So next slide. Yeah, so I'll be able to use it for medical x-rays, MRI, CTs, really complex pattern recognition. Just on a side, I was at a at a meeting with some, they were showing all these financial slides, and I couldn't really see the slides that well. So I took my camera out, I took a picture of the slide, and then I uploaded it to ChatGPT and said, hey, interpret this slide for me. And then it gave me all the points that the speaker was making about that slide, which was pretty cool. So things like that we'll be able to do. Next slide. So This is another interesting picture that I made or slide. Basically, is this: we all know in healthcare we're using evidence-based medicine, and you see that's that blue dot, and it's getting us ahead of where we are today. But what if I could use intelligence-based medicine? See how much faster I'm getting in my knowledge, how much quicker I'm getting to that point, and see how big that gap is becoming. So my point is, as we continue to use AI and leverage AI, we're going to start getting places faster. That example that I already gave you with the medications, look how many things we're able to do now and discover new medicine. And I really think that that AlphaFold project that they did, I really think advanced medicine by the decades, not just a couple of years, decades. Next slide. So I mentioned Gemini, and we're almost to the end of the talk. But Gemini basically is, think of it as another Chat GPT. It's instead of by OpenAI, this one's by Google. I'm really stoked about what they're saying it could do. They're claiming that it'll be 10 times better than Chat GPT. It'll have multimodality. We will be able to do so much on this. And next slide, and I'll show you some of their features that they announce. So on December 6th, 2023, they had this cool video. If people haven't checked it out, check it out. Now, I'm going to caution you and say, when you watch the video, you're thinking, holy cow, it's way advanced. But in reality, they sort of cheated. And I think they cheated in the sense that they ask a question and it looks like Google Gemini responded right away. In reality, they were taking still shots, uploading it, and then having the output and then going back and then putting it into the video. So, but it looks like the video is really fluid. In reality, it took longer than it did. But the proof of concept is still there. The first slide, it shows like the star, Saturn, and Earth, and it said, "Is this in the correct order?" And then it was able to correct it and say, "No, this is the correct order." They uploaded four different images of this guy with this scene, and it's a famous scene from The Matrix, and it was able to say, "This is The Matrix." Now, other things, it had pictures of a coin, and then they were moving it around and said, "Which under which cup is it?" And then it was able to create different games. Big picture, I think this is promising. I don't think if people are asking where the I think this is at, I think in the pecking order we have ChatGPT 4.5 at the top, then we have 4 ChatGPT, and then 3.5 ChatGPT. I think Gemini is somewhere between 3.5 and ChatGPT 4. So I think they're getting there. They haven't released their top model, and I think that personally may trump ChatGPT 4.5. But I think whenever my prediction is whenever that comes out, ChatGPT 5 will come out. Next slide. All right, so here's some of the images. Don't try this at home. I'm saying only if you're a doctor or a healthcare professional. Next slide. And so this was fun. Now this image here, I found it on Google. It doesn't have any, copyright, or I didn't take a patient's information and just take a picture and upload it for you guys to see. This was actually an image out there, and I asked ChatGPT. There's this person that came in. He took this tick off, and then all of a sudden this rash appeared, and this is what the rash looks like. Correctly, ChatGPT said, "Oh, this is bullseye. This is actually Lyme's disease." And then it had asked a little more and said, "Hey, what is the treatment?" It would have given it to me correctly. Next slide. So I took 4 different medications, and I took a picture of it. And of the 4 medications, one of them it got correct. The other 3, of the 4, one it did correct. The other one it hallucinated. It said it was some other drug that it really wasn't. And then the last 2, it had no idea. Now I know I just said how amazing this is. Again, this is just the beginning. All we need to do is upload the database, which is already out there, of these drugs, and this will be 10 times better. Next slide. In X-ray world, we're taught as a medical student to read it a certain format, and I was shocked when I took an X-ray. Again, this was X-ray that was on the internet, that was public domain, that anybody could download. But on the right, there's a little blob outside of the heart, and you'll see that that's actually pneumonia. And then I said, "Hey, I'm a radiologist, and I have a 30-year-old male with cough. Can you give me the different possibilities of what this thing could be?" And the first one it lists is a pneumonia, and it gets through all the differential diagnosis, which it did perfectly. Next slide. So on analyzing, again, it gave it to me exactly like, here are the lungs, here's what's going on, here's the heart, here's what I see. And it did it exactly like a textbook. This is exactly how we're taught in med school. And I was shocked to see that it read it just like a medical student. Next slide. The other thing, as an ER doctor, I had to throw an EKG. So again, I found an EKG, public domain. I uploaded it, and this one is something called ventricular tachycardia. But the skinny is this: it was able to look at the EKG and interpret it, and then tell me correctly that this is VTAC, which I was shocked. Next slide. And so again, when I probed it, it read the EKG just like a medical student's supposed to, go through all the different leads and not just jump to the diagnosis. And that's how we're taught, and that's how it read it. So good job, ChatGPT. Next slide. Here we get. I just wanted to see how it would do with different rashes, and I uploaded a rash and kind of give a little tiny vignette, and it actually gave me the correct diagnosis, which is tinea. What was cool is I also said, "Hey, I want to prevent this kind of fungus on my skin. How can I prevent it? And what are some treatments?" And then it went through the prevention and the treatment, and I went through it and it got it correctly. So good job. Next slide. And so then I put my doctor handwriting. I wrote a script and I uploaded it to ChatGPT to see how it did. I tried my best to kind of write better, but it didn't see my sevens. It interpreted as twos, and but the actual medication it got correct, but the quantity of days it got it incorrect. So I think to fix this problem, what I would have to do is I would have to upload my own handwriting and give it a key, and then with time it would learn how I write, and then it would know my scribbles. Next slide. So this is the really coolest part here of the talk. Basically, can AI read your mind? And go to the next slide. So this blew me away. All the pictures on your left is the actual picture of the input, meaning of what the patient actually saw. Then everything on the right of the picture that you see on the left is exactly what the AI predicted of what your eyes are seeing, which I thought is unreal. I mean, look at this. You see a picture of a zebra. It's not quite exactly, but you see this lighthouse. It's a lighthouse in a boat. You see this plane, you see the other plane. I mean, look at the amazing detail. And what they did is they studied all the way pictures and then the brain patterns of your brain. And then they're able to create this algorithm. And now they're able to predict what you're seeing. When I saw this, this was crazy. This is through Meta. Next slide. And so, what is the future? I really think the future is this multimodality where we'll be able to take pictures and look at videos and text. And I strongly think that we will see a robot this year that has the eyes of ChatGPT 4, meaning this robot can go in and the eyes will be able to see the patient's blood pressure, hemoglobin A1C, the average sugar, just with the eyes. The eyes as well will be paired with the ears of the robot and your voice. It will be able to tell if you're depressed, have early dementia, believe it or not, just with your voice. And we have a big nursing shortage out there. So I really think in the near future, we're going to start seeing these robots in healthcare, obviously in other industries, but I really think the eyes of the robot it's going to have all these things that I just showed you, and it's going to learn from its mistakes. And maybe the robot on day one may not be the best, but I can almost guarantee you that by day five it's going to be 10 times better because it's going to be using the vision, learning from its mistakes, and going to the next level. Next slide. So, as an aside, if you have any questions and you want to learn more about AI in healthcare, I have my own e-course out there that I worked on. It's over 65 lectures. It's got a ton and ton of information on there, ranging from ethics to starting. And I'm encouraging anyone to take a look at it. Next slide. The other thing is I have these free cheat sheets. Feel free to, I have them on my LinkedIn, but basically it's how to use ChatGPT in healthcare. What things can I use in GPT world and healthcare? And then I go through Chrome extension, websites, prompt engineering, different plugins that are out there. So take a look at those sheets. Next slide. And then if you're more advanced, then I made some more advanced slides on for medical students and CMEs and how to get the most out of it just at another level. And next slide. And then the last thing I want to say is really have fun with AI. I know it's kind of scary. Take it to the next level. I'm going to ask you to take a look at my, it's called the GPT podcast. Now that you heard my voice, I actually cloned my voice. And then what I did, it was take it to the next level. I took my voice. I get an article that I thought was cool on AI. I put it into ChatGPT. I have the software that I made, and it converts the article into a fake conversation between my business partner and I. Then we use our clone voices, and in under 5 minutes, it makes the picture of our podcast. It makes the LinkedIn post. It makes the transcript. It makes the MP3. Then for the file of the to go up to Spotify or the this website, and then it's out there. The only reason I share that is why not use this for our patients? Why not give us discharge instructions where I can do something similar? So if you have any questions, I'm on LinkedIn, YouTube, all that stuff under Harvey Castro MD. And then just feel free to hit me up. So thank you, everybody. And I look forward to your questions.
So thank you so much, Dr. Castro, for such an informative and loaded information session. I think what I got from your talk here, uh, among many other things, is the ability to create that human aspect, if you will. You talked about compassion and empathy, and I think that can go a long way, particularly when in conjunction with cultural barriers and language that needs to be overcome in a medical setting. So that's really, I think, a big key part of being able to dial into this type of technology. So we're going to take some questions from the audience here, if you don't mind. Uh, so how can AI, like Chat GPT, uh, fill diagnostic gaps? You mentioned about the case of tethered cord syndrome for Courtney. So, how can that fill that particular gap in addition to what you explained earlier?
You know, I think it's a lot of it is education. I think it can fill the gap by explaining how I talk to you. I'm like a nutty professor sometimes. I really think a certain way and I think I say it. My wife's like, you didn't say that. And I'm like, I know I did. And so why not use AI to help me with these things, help me bridge that gap between my patients and myself. And I think that's one. The second, I already mentioned differential diagnosis, but I want to really stress like, man, this is a tool that can really help me think of all the different possibilities. I'm unfortunately 20 years plus out of medical school, and yes, I read, but there's always these new diseases. How nice would it be to have an AI start telling me, hey, did you consider XYZ? And if I never heard of it, because I mean, there are some rare diseases that maybe there's 10 people in the world with it, and that's it.
Right.
I may not know it, or I may have never seen that patient. But if ChatGPT or a GPT equivalent has been trained on this and says, hey, have you thought of this disease? And I'm like, I don't know what that is. And then I start reading and be like, holy cow, I didn't even know this existed. You know what? My patient actually may have this. And then now I start doing more tests.
Awesome. Yeah, it's like AI and humans working together, and I think some of the pushback maybe is the fear of not knowing, as with any new thing. But as you point out, education is a key part of allowing people to feel like, oh, this can help me. So, yeah, we've got another question here. So, you mentioned about medical data, and I agree. Being a former biotech pharmaceutical executive, the data is really increasing at an astronomical rate. And so, with that data doubling every 30 days, how can GPT technologies assist healthcare professionals in staying up to date?
There's so much data coming at us, and there's this website called Up to Date, and I joke that it's not really up to date. We need something like AI in the background, and so how can it help? I'm working with some startup companies to basically create AI where, say, I'm an ER doctor, it's going into all the journals, grabbing the data that just came out this week, and then putting it in either my email on a website that has all the bullets of what just came out. And then when I want to learn more about that particular article, then I just click and it takes me there. And so I think these are the things, the tools that we need, and we need to really use them. Information is growing so fast that it's really hard for all of us to keep up. And that's why doctors specialize. That's why we do,
Yes.
dermatology, pediatrics, and whatnot. But even in that world, it's another world. And so that's why sometimes people subspecialize because there's so much information.
Yeah, yeah, being that I've done some work with the Texas Medical Center medical schools, that's exactly what I'm hearing. And in addition to the compassion and the empathy, obviously, there's that part where, like you said, the specialization really is something that I think, based on this technology, can improve their ability to improve the health outcome. So we got another question here. How safe uh, is it in terms of saving data in terms of GPT and storing everything in terms of email, private info, IP address, all search data?
No,
How does
that's a
that
good
work?
point. You know, honestly, if you I don't wanna say if you if I'll just say it, if you wanna be super, super safe, then I would suggest the following. I would suggest, depending on what you're using, you can get away with using a small model like Llama. I literally have it on my Mac computer. That Mac computer has no access to the internet. And what I can do is I could ask it any questions. I know it's not being stored, it's not being pushed to the internet. It's all on that laptop. I have it secured. I know that the only way of getting into that is somebody would literally have to steal that from me, and um I don't leave that laptop outside of the house, and I make sure that that's secure. And that's my way of making sure that certain data that I'm using or consulting or working with other companies that I know they don't want that data out, I'm only putting it on that device. Now, when it comes to ChatGPT, it becomes a handshake deal. You can on the settings on the ChatGPT, you can say, "Do not use this to be trained," and then it's a trust factor that you're saying, "Okay, they're not using this data." But I don't know if if you're really worried about X, Y, Z. I don't know if you want to even take that chance that
Right.
they may not, because there's always breaches.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's a known fact. You've got to be cognizant of the fact that things can happen and risk is always there. So something to be mindful of. Um, the next question is, how can we prevent malicious actors from using Chat GPT to spread false or harmful information in various domains?
No, that's a great question. You know, here in the United States, it's an election year, so there's already so many deep fakes going on with, the different presidential candidates saying X, Y, Z, and it's going both ways. Some of them, they actually said some of these things, and then they'll say, no, that was AI that said that. How
Yeah.
do we safeguard this? Well, we have to verify everything, unfortunately. As much as I say, yeah, use it, I'm also saying we must verify. And then when it comes to prevention, there's things that the manufacturing companies are doing, like Sony has a camera out that every time it takes a picture, it puts a blockchain code on it. So that way, you know that that picture is authentic. Other things that they're doing is the algorithms. Right now, you and I could tell your blood pressure just with using this camera. I can use this app and it'll tell me roughly what it is. But what if I was using AI to animate myself and make it look like I was a real, but in reality it's wrong? One of the algorithms that are out there is it's looking for blood flow underneath my skin. And so
Mm,
obviously if this is a computer generated, that blood flow is not there. Now, maybe somebody will figure out a way of making it look like that, but for now that's way. So I feel like there's companies out there that are really pushing for this kind of stuff to stop these kind of deep fakes. Good question.
yeah. Yeah. It's again, always something that needs to be addressed, particularly with something very new like this and very innovative. So, the next question is, how can the use of Chat GPT be regulated to ensure adherence to ethical standards, laws, regulations, preventing its misuse? And I think you kind of touched on that, but this might be
Yeah.
a little more pointed here.
No, no, this is a great question. So, to me, I see two safeguards already out there. We have the GDPR in Europe, and we have HIPAA here in the United States. That are any tools that are out there that are definitely not healthcare need to make sure that they're HIPAA compliant. If they're not, the other part to this is the FDA. The FDA, if somebody puts a tool out there that is not adhering to certain standards or law regulations, then the FDA will pull it, saying this is not allowed. To give you a quick example of how people are doing this, there's some startups using API claiming to be like an AI doctor, and they're going out there selling. Once the FDA sees stuff like this, like, whoa, this hasn't been FDA approved. This is now a medical device,
Yeah.
and we're pulling you, and now you're under lawsuit. So these are things. Now, I'll say the last thing is I feel like Europe is really strict on these things. The United States, not as much. And so you're going to start seeing different flavors where maybe if you're in Europe, you're like, why can my friend in the United States do this, but I'm here in Europe and I can't? And that's why, because these AI models are already changing so that when it's talking to people in Europe, it's giving them the European edition. And here in
Yes.
the United States, there's different laws. So then it's giving them the US edition.
Right. Right. Yeah, that's a key factor there. It's a differentiator. So we got another question here. Can you elaborate on the various applications of large language models in healthcare, particularly in drug discovery and development. And you talked about that a little bit in your talk. So, yeah,
Yeah, so this is really cool. For example, I saw this algorithm that's working for clinical trials, and what it's doing is this algorithm, large language model, is able to you could put in all this information, and then it's able to extract what is the data it needs for the clinical trial and get us there quicker. The other versions of stuff that similar that I've seen is sometimes imagine doing all this research and it may take months to years to get to a certain point. Now using the power of large language model to take this large amount of information and make summaries or start looking at the data and saying, here, what patterns are you noticing? And then let's extract those patterns and put it into our clinical trial. These kind of things are helping us instead of it taking months. It may take weeks now. And so these are ways that we can leapfrog in our development of drugs.
yeah. Boy, that would have come in handy for COVID, maybe, huh?
Yeah.
Of course, we got we did great, I think, according to the standards of getting a drug to market, if you will. So, this next question is, how do you see AI, specifically large language models, transforming personalized medicine by analyzing patient data for tailored treatment options?
Yeah, this is exciting to me. As I look at my Apple Watch, there's all these APIs that are coming from our information, and I can use the data that's in here. And if you start looking carefully at what's being done already, they're looking at your data. One of the simple stuff is if I'm sitting in this office all day, it'll ring on here and say, "Hey, get up, start walking." And so, how can this help us? Well, having these types of information, knowing if my patient is not walking around much, then that information can be sent to me as a doctor, and I can turn around and say, okay, we need some more activity. I notice that you only walk on Monday for and Thursdays at 4 to 5. Let's see how we can change that. Now I can personalize this to you. Let me give you another quick fun example. Everybody here in the United States has heard of Instacart. Let's pretend I have a diabetic patient and their hemoglobin A1C is the average of the last 3 months, and say their sugar is really high, say a number like 10, where it should be under 6 or under 7, depending on their medical conditions. But here's the thing, I can use ChatGPT. I can say, hey, my patient, I'm going to put them on a keto diet. My patient hates nuts, really doesn't like fish, and give me the grocery list. So then it'll make the Monday through Friday list, grocery list, the actual recipes, and then I can take all of that, put it in my patient's Instacart, and then we can go through it together. And they like it, then they hit send. By the time my patient's home, their groceries are there waiting to eat correctly.
Wow, wow, awesome, man. That is innovation at its best there, no doubt. So, thank you so much. It looks like we've covered all the questions here. And again, I just want to thank you for wanting to be a part of this summit. Your information, your expertise is invaluable, and we're looking forward to, as I've stated to the other guest speakers, collaborating in the future and continue to make big things happen. So I'm now going to give the closing remarks for our summit here. And if you would stay backstage